Today I will be talking about nuclear plants and the future. Now, when we think of power generation, our minds automatically go to coal. But a fact we don't know is that coal ash is more radioactive than nuclear waste. The reason for this being is that coal has trace amounts of two radioactive elements, thorium and uranium. And when coal is burned, all that carbon gets burned away, and so all that leaves is the radioactive material to get dispersed into the atmosphere. Now, speaking of radiation, when we think of it, we think of something that's deadly. We think of cancer, we think of cancer treatments. But radiation is not all that bad. True, it is dangerous, because you have to give credit where credit is due. But it's not something that can automatically kill us at every single point. It's not something that's going to chase us to the ends of the earth. Along with that, nuclear is being used in other countries, so this is also a testament to how safe it is. Even the US has a total of 96 nuclear plants, and behind us is France with 56. Now, the reason that nuclear plants are so widespread is because of how practical they are. Well, they're not so practical as they're so efficient. The other non-carbon ways of producing power take up so much space that nuclear is a great alternative. Now, moving back to nuclear power as a whole, and just radiation. True, nuclear power plants do not have a good past. They have been dangerous, such as Chernobyl in 1986, the 3 Mile accident in Japan in 1979, and not that long ago, Fukushima in 2011. Now, Fukushima, it was different. The problem with that incident is it was caused by an earthquake and a tsunami. So there was no human error, unlike the other two. Now, let's shift our focus to the other two. Mainly Chernobyl. Chernobyl, the main problem with that one was that the workers there, what they wanted to do was they wanted to shoot these graphite rods right here. Now these are the power rods. These are where the fuel goes and it heats up the water, and then the water goes through, and then it turns these turbines, and then it gets flushed out by steam, cools down, comes back in as water, and repeats the cycle. So what they did was they shot these graphite rods in there, which speeded up the process and made it a lot more reactive. And since it was so reactive, it just exploded. Now, the problem with that is that it was human error that did that. It wasn't the radiation. The radiation was a byproduct of the situation that they put themselves in because of their greed. This was a lot of the same with the 3 Mile incident. Now, that is in the past. And of course, today, in 2021, we're a lot safer. We know a lot more about radiation, and we know how to keep it safe and how to lock it behind closed doors, per se. So, as I said earlier, the US is leading in nuclear power, but France is not far behind. But France, they have a lot more policies regarding this. But what I mean policies is they recycle their waste and use it as fuel again, which is amazing because that reduces the waste that nuclear plants produce and it keeps costs down for it. However, the US does not have these policies. Moving on. 10% of all countries use nuclear plants. Now that sounds like a little bit, but do not let that number fool you. There are around 8 billion people on this planet. And all those people need power in this day and age. So that 10% is actually a lot, and it's very hard to wrap your brain around. Finally, uranium. Uranium has, in the past, has been used for fission bombs, such as the bombs dropped on Japan. Now, what came out of that was this. We figured out a way to do fission that creates heat, that heats up the water, and it goes through here, and then it gets sent out as steam, cools, comes back in as water, turns this turbine, and then gets sent back through. So, all that done. So, because of that bomb, we produce this. And the US has a lot of uranium sitting around, tons and tons and tons of it, in these locked away places. And they're doing nothing with it. They're just letting it rot away. So what we can do with that is use it in this. We can use it in this and produce more power and help. Now finally, nuclear power produces more power than any other low carbon production of power. So, if we think about that for a second, hydroelectric power, sometimes there's a drought, and when there's a drought, you can't produce power. And when it's not sunny, you can't produce solar. When it's not windy, you can't produce windmill power. But nuclear power works 93% of the time. 93% of the year, it works at maximum capacity. And so, that is 1.5 to 2 times more than gas and coal, and it is 2.5 to 3.5 times more reliable than the other forms of producing power. And like I said before, the waste can be recycled. So thank you.
You're at 7.